this is your host, Julia Napini. I am a clinical and forensic social worker who owns a counseling practice and a consulting business. In this show, we discuss the challenges of being successful in business while maintaining your integrity and staying true to yourself. Join me while I interview other professionals and share insights from life and experience. Let's talk about RingRx, our latest sponsor. RingRx is a high-quality, HIPAA-compliant telephone, text, and fax communications platform. They provide seamless, cost-effective communications for behavioral therapists, medical practices, hospitals, and other healthcare providers. RingRx is designed for modern healthcare environments. They offer customizable features like a phone app, automated patient outreach, voicemail, after-hours call routing, and top-quality desk phones. Try RingRx for free today at ringrx.com. And if you sign up using the code CLIMB, you'll get 15% off your monthly bill forever. Conditions apply.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Compassionate Climb podcast. Today we are going to meet with someone who has created a product that I truly feel has the potential to revolutionize the way we provide counseling and engage clients in between sessions. And I could not be more excited to share him and this program with you all. Matthew Joseph, welcome to the show.
Julia, thank you so much. This is an honor.
I am really looking forward to it. I've gotten to know you a little bit through this process. You have infectious energy. You are extremely passionate about what you do. That is exactly the type of guest we want to have on this show. So fill the audience in on your background. How did you get to where you are now and the creation of this?
Yeah. Well, first of all, again, thank you for having me. This is a great, the podcast, even in listening to other episodes throughout it, were just very inspiring. I just love seeing how different business leaders, progress through their own journeys, and everyone seems to have their own journey. So I'm excited to be a part of and share a little bit about my own. Throughout my undergrad, so I actually graduated from my undergrad just last year. Throughout it, I was there's always been this desire to intersect the overlap between entrepreneurship and mental health. And so just kind of throughout COVID, I was dealing with my own kind of mental health battles and struggles, and ended up realizing that, okay, I really want to do something in the mental health space, but more on the entrepreneurial side of things. And so kind of exploring some of those questions, I was just like, what are the problems that exist in the mental health space? And I ended up actually going and interviewing initially about 30 therapists for an hour, just to understand, like, hey, what are the pains that you're experiencing? What are the things that kind of come up in the therapeutic process that are harder, or where are the inefficiencies, or where are the places where things can get more effective in treatment and stuff. And kind of this problem that kept coming up was that on one side, homework in therapy is such a big component of trying to help clients engage with the therapeutic process and all the hours of therapy that they're not in session. But also the challenge of clients maybe not completing their homework, because a lot of therapists are sending out maybe a PDF worksheet, right? A black and white piece of paper over an email where there's no reminders, and they have to pull it up and download it and then send it back to their therapist, which just almost never happens. And so seeing that as being such an important component, but also that problem there of clients not completing it, created an opportunity of like, okay, why don't we make it more engaging for the client, and then so that it never feels like homework, and then make it easier for the therapists on their end to send, customize, find it, and review it and track it in between sessions as well. After a long journey of trying out different components and different things and stuff, and then converging on this, we've been able to see a lot more traction and a lot more exciting. We're bringing on new practices now and seeing a lot more results with that. But obviously, I'm open to starting with that as a foundation. We can take it wherever from there.
I love it. So tell us about this program, why you chose the name that you did, and what that process of creating it was like.
Yeah. For the name, it's interesting. Yeah, we put the name actually to another mental health product that we had built, but realized that it was still very relevant. It's not a word. It doesn't exist. And so it's totally made up. But we made it up because kind of Noveltor is the name of it. And so the final component of it, the tour, is typically somebody that does something, right? Maybe of substance, of some sort of significance, of some sort of identity too. Like it's somebody that it's a realtor or a janitor or somebody that does something, right? And then novel is is new, means new, or can symbolize is the word for something like a book, right? Mm-hmm. And so in a way, it's like somebody that is becoming new, or somebody that is writing their own story, and having that space in between session to engage in the therapeutic process is them in a way becoming new, right? Or in a way kind of documenting what is going on and writing their story of what's going on in all the hours that they're not in session, which just is very therapeutic in that sense of, of all the hours that they're not in therapy. Like that's the story that they can share with their therapist without having to, I guess, talk about it for 30 minutes in session. They can get to the root of things in session and have that space to review things and stuff. But I might be missing another one of what were some of the other questions that you were touching on as well?
Of creating it. So you get this idea, you identify a need, you interview all of these people that are doing this work and they're giving you feedback. And then what did the process look like to actually make it a viable product program?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm obviously not necessarily a therapist, although like I am a mental health professional. Like I work at a group home for like clients with severe mental illness. So it helps inform it a little bit, but really it was initially started with kind of doing those interviews. We came up with some like Google slide presentations of what this idea could look like, and went back to that group of 30 that we were like really had close relations with, and just talks with getting closer with them, and just kept showing it to them. Hey, what do you think about this? How can we make this better? What things can be changed, improved, et cetera, just with a slide deck. Because it's like the minimum viable product in a way is what we were trying to get here, to just show someone. And then after a few of those iterations, we took our final slide deck actually and went and asked, a group of those 30 therapists, I think about 15 of them, asked them like, hey, like, would you be willing to pay early admission into a beta that was happening in 2 months before, and so that we can get a gauge as to whether or not this is even an idea worth building out. Because we had a developer on the team, we have the product person on the team and the business person on the team. And it was like, okay, cool, we can do this, but like, we just want to make sure we're spending our time right. And out of the 15 therapists, I think 7 of them ended up paying like early admission. So that, and we didn't even have anything developed, right? And so going from like this just being a Google slide presentation to already having like paying users before that was a good indicator. And then using with those 7, like really like meeting with them every single week, say, hey, how is it going with your clients? What's going on? What things can be made better, et cetera. So a lot of like time and work in the process with the actual users, because we're humble enough to know that like we don't have all the answers, right? And that it's going to be told from the actual therapists themselves, and continue to make iterations. And from there, starting to expand to the group practices and bring on more larger bodies of therapists and stuff like that too. And that's been a huge source of feedback as well. But that was kind of the creation, fun little risky bets that we took in the beginning, but just to say, why not, let's try this thing out and see where it can go.
So this team that you're working with, how did you find these individuals, and what has it been like to work with them?
Yeah. So initially it was me, my best friend, and then Nick. So Roscoe, it was me, Roscoe, and Nick. And it was this kind of birth from me and Roscoe's passion overlapping of just like wanting to build something in the mental health space. And we were already having conversations about psychology and our own mental health and figuring out how we can make things better and stuff. And then we actually end up finding Nick through an online coding community where I was just reaching out, hey, trying to build a website. I had no idea how to actually build. I was just online asking, hey, asking questions. And then he sent me back like this line of code. And I was like, I don't even know what any of that means. And then we started going back and forth and talking about it and realizing like, he was like, oh, this is a really cool project. I'd love to like help out. So we've been working with him for a while, and then it was us 3. And then we ended up bringing on someone to help with the design. of the actual software. His name's Nico. And he helped really build the foundation of the design for about 5 months or so. And we built it with him, and then now still using those designs today. But it's really just like scrappy, just a bunch of guys coming together in a room and saying like, hey, what can we do to help? And what can we do to make this thing the best that it can be? But also kind of that there's a level of friendship in that. Like we're all going to fight for each other. That we're going to be there for each other's backs. And I think that's what ends up making kind of these little startups more successful, is just like when it comes to a team, it's like, can we be really close? Can you have my back? Not even necessarily like who has the best expertise and who's going to be the person that has the best advice. And, it's more of a family. We're trying to build that more than just like a team of experts, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It is such an inspiring story. So as a group practice owner, who obviously we have several clinicians, we serve a significant number of clients, and we come together on a regular basis, providing support to one another, collaborating. One of the biggest sources of frustration, might be the best word, is where clients are at in the process and how important timing is and life circumstances and their situation, and how they might believe in the process and they're committed and they're coming and they're trying to do the work, but it's making it really hard for them to take what's being learned in session and put that into practice in their day-to-day life for a multitude of reasons. And so when you had reached out and we had a conversation, it seemed like a no-brainer that this was something that was absolutely worth trialing, because I saw it potentially bridging that gap and helping people to really progress faster, but to affect some long-lasting change and that ripple effect where I can see it affecting not only that client, but obviously all of the people that they connect with in their own life. And so we will be trialing that as a team, and I'm really looking forward to that. But walk somebody through who's unfamiliar, what would that look like for them to get set up on the program? And then what does it look like on the client side?
Well, absolutely. And I want to just address something that you had mentioned as well, with just like, even from what we've seen of the current usage of the software and the app as well, it's funny. It's not that clients don't want to be practicing these skills in between sessions. It's not that they don't even necessarily, that there's something wrong with them. And it's funny. That sometimes is the same way of thinking that they're thinking in their mind when they don't complete the worksheet or et cetera. It's like they get this feeling of guilt or like shame. It's like, I'm not doing good enough in the therapeutic process. And it's like what we found is kind of like that, when we can make it easier, when we can make it more accessible, that actually empowers the client to take those steps, because it's right there in front of them. It's on their mobile phone rather than, digging in their email, trying to find the PDF. Sure. So it's just really interesting to see that they don't have to blame themselves if we can make the process easier, and seeing clients go from, getting that email for 4 months and them never completing the homework to now not only they're not only completing the activities, but they're actually requesting more of it. The same client. And like that to me is eye-opening, just about humanity and what that means about who we are as human beings. Is that like we want to do things. It's just sometimes it's really difficult to it. And so, but in terms of what it looks like on the therapist side, being able to kind of have a library of activities that you can send, all pre-made, very easily can be sent out as is. But some therapists love the feeling of kind of being able to make something their own, as also make something relevant to their client. So we enable them to then be able to customize. So if you want to add in a scale of anxiety at the end of a weekly check-in, or at the end of a thought log of like how anxious was this, or add in even a meditation into an activity that might be more stressful in nature if they're documenting a stressful situation that they're in, that you can add in a coping exercise at the end of that to settle them down, right? That customization helps the client feel like this is really made for them. And then being able to send it out right from there, and then scheduling it if you need to send it on a weekly basis, automatically having those sent, et cetera. And then when it's sent, the client gets a notification on their phone. They can have the app, or they can complete it through their email or from a browser. And then having like an interactive card deck kind of game in a way where they can engage with the activity and document either what's going on throughout the week, or be able to practice a skill that they, that they learned in session and apply it outside of session, or just log and track things that maybe they're going through as well, that they want their therapist to know before the next session. That's how it kind of looks like on the client, being able to access that right from their phone, right from where everyone's kind of already sitting and during these in their day, enables them to engage with it a lot better than having to, like we said, like digging in the email.
Yeah.
And so that's typically how it looks like on both sides. And there's reasons I can get into for like why we've done certain things like that, and values for it and stuff. But yeah.
So you've definitely streamlined the process, and it sounds like you're doing everything that you can to set both the client and the clinician up for success, to make it really user-friendly. It's modifiable. There are reminders. Just visually, aesthetically, it's very, draws you in, really makes a lot of sense. It's very, what's the word that I'm thinking of? I don't know, just user-friendly comes to mind. Like, it makes sense, the structure of it, the layout, the colors, and whatnot. So what are some of the feedback that you've been getting so far from people that are using it? And what are they saying that they're getting for results, maybe from the clients that are utilizing it?
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting findings, which we didn't necessarily anticipate just off the bat, because we thought it was, okay, practice skills in between sessions so that the clients themselves are getting better through the homework itself. And that's kind of more obviously happening, right? Because it's like, okay, if they're getting engaged in the process of therapy and they're practicing the skills, they're obviously going to see better treatment outcomes. And we're seeing that get shown even just from like the therapists that are currently using it. But the other additional impact that we've been seeing is, and I just actually met with one of the therapists that's using it, and she had highlighted this like tremendously, was just being able to send an activity, something even just like a weekly check-in, for example, of documenting, what is going on throughout the week, has been a really interesting avenue for clients to have a space to express and track what is going on. Because a lot of times when session does come, it's not that they're getting cold feet, but it's more like it's really easy to just forget about what is happening throughout the week in general, right? Especially when you're kind of confronted with someone that's like, hey, what do you want to talk about? It's like, oh, everything goes blank, and like I don't really remember, and I also don't know how to like tap into the emotions of like how bad it was or how hard it was. So I might even discount my own experiences like in regards to that. So having that weekly check-in where they can go in when their mom yells at them, right? They can go in the moment of when they maybe didn't do well on that exam, or like when that that trigger came up, that comes up, or that thought comes up that ends up creating that series of emotions, right? They can go into this, have a space to kind of process or just document it, and then kind of one, validates the experience, and then two, also enables that data, in a way you could look at it as data, to get sent to that story, maybe is a better word, that story of what's going on in between session, to get sent to the therapist. And then now the therapist is better prepared, so we can start session saying, hey, I saw what happened in the weekly check-in with the exam. Really sorry. I know you really cared about that exam a lot, and like, that maybe you got in an argument with mom because of that. Can we talk about that? What about that maybe made you so anxious? And it's like, boom, we're getting at the root of things right at the beginning of session. Yeah. And we're talking about things that might have even gotten lost if the client didn't have a space to actually document it. So sessions are also getting more effective in itself, and are, hopefully impacting like time to treatment and the treatment outcomes through that as well, which is really interesting. But so obviously treatment outcomes, and then just session effectiveness, becoming better as well.
Well, it also sounds like it stays a very client-led process. So I know being in that clinician seat and really trying to review the previous note and being mindful of their treatment plan goals and what were the issues that they identified when they first came to treatment. Very oftentimes the focus shifts to what happened in that last week or what happened between sessions. And it sounds like there's that opportunity for them to document in the moment, really capture the essence of what they were feeling before they've had time to process it. And they're doing a lot more of that engagement. Then I also love that idea of the preparation before session. It's like taking a moment before you're sitting on that couch or before you're logging into that session to really think about what are the key points that you want to make sure your therapist is aware of. What are the things that you're putting into practice? What are the challenges that you had with doing so? And, what do you really want the focal point to be? Because we all know that you have that appointment on your calendar and you may come in and it may feel like a whirlwind. Do we pick up where we
Yes.
left off, or what are the things in terms of priority level that really make the most sense? And not that that is not necessarily helpful, but if you have some sort of structure to it and some forethought, I can see the effectiveness and the progress ultimately, and how that
Yeah.
is going to shape this whole process. So
Absolutely.
very cool.
And it's super interesting because it's like, even with the clients that maybe don't, like sometimes, because sessions is almost always like retrospective, right? It's almost always we're thinking about something in the past, right? Or if it's the last week, or if it's 10 years ago, right? Whatever that story is, like we don't really, it's hard to access those emotions of what it was like. And so that's when it's retrospective, that's when the story flips on.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that we think about our own story is sometimes can be impacted by our diagnosis itself, right? So like,
Right.
if, and that could be looking at like, oh, it wasn't really that bad, but it's like, wait, are you like, is that just your story telling you that, or is that like an actuality? Because, right, like if they had the opportunity on Tuesday night to document it and it was like, oh my gosh, like this is actually, then it's not gonna, that story can't come up because it's accessed in the moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just that is so important to be able to know the difference between what's the client's story that they're sharing and then what's the actual thing that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of unlocks that, right? Which is really interesting.
Definitely. So I'm thinking that part of your process in this development was some market research and what else is available out there. Are there a lot of
Right.
other programs that do something similar, and what really makes yours stand out?
Yeah, there's a huge push right now in general in the therapy space for like measurement based care. So like being able to, know how the client is doing more objectively, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the field is trying to go more in an objective space, more for
Yeah.
credibility and also for insurance as well. But I think the thing that still like is getting a little bit not as kept up with is the thing that maybe aren't as measurable, right? That the less objective stats about how a client is doing. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of the therapists that use our software, like, they use assessments, right? But they don't really rely on it too much because they don't look at their client like a number,
Mm-hmm.
right? They like to hear the letters that they speak, the words that are being used,
Right.
right? Instead of just a 3 on the PHQ-9, right? Or a 7 on one of the. It's just like it feels less personal, and also
Yeah,
like,
this brings it to life.
right, exactly. And it's just like, actually, like, how are you? If we even ask the question through Noveltor, which you can't do in any other software, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't customize to the extent that you can do on Noveltor and on any other software. You can ask a very specific question that's tailored to the client. Let's say even something that's relevant to them for that week, of like, how was the exam, right? Like, and asking that, or even the question of the week that we always kind of task the client with reflecting
Mm-hmm.
on, right, in between sessions, right? That could be a card itself, right? And so being able to almost like tailor it, but still in an easy way is really what makes us unique, rather than a lot of like the measurement based care, which you can send out just kind of like a thought log, or like, a general, maybe a general activity, or just like assessments,
Mm-hmm.
without really getting the story of what's going on there in between sessions. And so I think that's really what helps us differentiate the most. And because we found, even in the interviews that we did, that was a huge component,
Yeah.
and a reason why maybe that's not as important. The numerics is not as important, but the real qualitative story behind it feels like that's the data that the therapists really do want.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. So, one of the things that I think would be so relevant for all of our listeners who are likely entrepreneurs, some might be in the mental health space, some may not, and that you really excel in, so I'd love to pick your brain, is this whole idea
Mm,
of relational marketing. You
mm,
are someone who clearly takes the time and listens to someone's story. You want to understand the pain point. You want to really kind of put a face to that problem, the follow up,
mm,
the accessibility. There are a lot of these components that really set you personally apart from a lot of other marketing strategies. So tell me where
Mhm.
that comes from and why it is that it seems like such a natural thing for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think a component of it is, I think, a very personal thing, and then also a component of it is just the stage that we're in, right?
Hmm.
I'll speak to both. I mean, on the stage is, right now it is so pivotal that we are making something that people love. That is the
Hmm.
goal, right? Like, I don't want to make another thing, right? Another widget that can say, this is cool, this is interesting, right? Like, no, I want to make something that, like, that if I took it away from you, you'd be like, wait, no, 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 like, give it back, like, like I would want that process to feel like that. And so having the relationship where I can say, like, I can email you and say, what do you hate about this thing? And you can say, Matt, I hate this part about the time that it takes for that or this, or cool, right? That's what I want to know. And then, like, so I guess I think because of our stage, we're not trying to do scaling marketing with big advertisements that if 100 people say yes, I'm not going to know any of them. And if I email them, it's going to be creepy, right? Like,
Sure.
and so there's that stage, but then the more personal component is, like, I got into business so that I could again, honestly, it's the same interesting reason, is like, so that I could impact people impact the world in a medium that is, I guess, more changing structures in a way, changing systems of how we do things. But the relational component to that, even I've been in entrepreneurship since I was a kid. I had little social media marketing businesses. I had a social media marketing business when I was like 16 years old, where I would I was 15. I didn't even have a driver's license yet. I would go skateboarding to client meetings in like a suit. I would take my skateboard and toss it in the bushes so that they didn't know that I was this young. And I would walk in the meeting with just gusto, right? Just total confidence. Because I wanted to meet in person. I didn't want to meet over the phone. I didn't want to hide myself. Like, I was like, hey, I'm here, right? Like, and being able to see the face, right? Being able to watch the reaction of,
Yeah.
if it's like or that is the game changer between, like, good sales, I think, and bad, and also like a good product and a bad product, right? Is being able to get those insights and knowing, okay, whoa, like, I don't want them to feel that way in that moment. Let's change this, pivot it. But also it's just
Hmm.
relevant to the stage that we're at too.
Definitely. Well, it shows. So I have to ask, what
Thank you.
nurtured this entrepreneurial spirit that you developed so young?
Yeah, that's wow. I mean, honestly, like, in getting real, and I'm a very open book. Like, I think I had a lot of trouble as a kid, just in general. I think when I was younger, the school system just wasn't a fit for me. I mean,
Yeah.
actually, I couldn't stay in my chair. I could not, to save my life. Like,
That
I
does not
found
surprise me. You're like a little jumping bean.
yeah, exactly. I'm proud of it. I'll jump wherever. I mean, how high? That's my next question, right?
Skateboard wherever for
It,
a time, right?
yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. I did that, but I think just, like, it didn't fit for me. I knew that from a very young age. Like,
Yeah.
it didn't work for me, and I think, the what's beautiful about entrepreneurship is that it's a very all accepting field. Like, nobody's not allowed to be an entrepreneur, right? Like, it doesn't, uh, ideally, right? I mean, obviously, like, in a world where there's not discrimination and there's not these things,
Sure,
obviously, like,
sure.
where the ideal is that anyone can start something, anyone can break the mold, break the system, and make a change and make a difference in something that they really deeply care about.
Yeah.
And so I think I realized at a very young age that, like, that normal system, it just doesn't work for me in general. So I was already thinking about ways to change things, make things different. And I think, just like, because of that, it was maybe a little bit of pent up, I got to prove it to them to some extent. And then getting over that, of having to prove it, then just kind of finding, like, an honest love for just the building
Yeah.
process, an honest love for creating, for dreaming in that
Mhm.
regard, and doing so with a team that I love, ended up becoming the thing that fostered a more healthy relationship to entrepreneurship, which is very
Mhm.
important. And so, yeah, that would be mainly my story, especially as a younger age.
What a powerful message. I go back to the word that I used before, inspiring. So thank you so much for sharing that. So fill the audience in on how they can learn more. If you can give the price point of this, is it monthly subscription? What does that look like? And how can they continue to learn more about you?
Yeah. So Noveltor is the name of the software, Noveltor. So like, we have a website. I have on the website, if you sign up, you can actually just book a demo right from there, and that'll be with me. Cause like we said, very relationally based. You can also email me. I have to. But you can also email me at Matthew at mattthew@noveltor.com. If this is something that you do resonate with, if you kind of are looking for more ways to provide high quality care for your clients, like in between sessions, it's something that you want to explore. Obviously, I'd love to even explore if it's a fit. I don't want to force anything on anyone's throat or anyone's process, but more just to explore if it is something that might resonate. Right now we're very early stage, like where the contracts that we have are very personalized to the practice. So in terms of like a cost, I think it would make more sense for me to just say that I'm willing to work with whoever right now, because that's just the stage that we're in. With some sort of payment attached is kind of where we're at, of just trying to continue to get users on and working with people that we can really give space, that can give feedback, and that we can dream with, is kind of like what we're looking for, which is why I'm excited to work with y'all's practice. Seems like a dreaming practice already. But yeah, definitely for anyone that I guess for higher quality care, and for those that want to kind of give a more premium experience for their clients in between session, and give that space to clients, it might be a good idea to explore a fit with you. I'm excited for that. But for anyone else out there that's maybe not a private practice owner, I'd love to learn your story and connect with you. My LinkedIn is Matthew E. Joseph. Feel free to look me up. I have a mustache in the photo if you want to, nice, and tell me if you missed that. Nobody does.
Make sure they got the right guy.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, that's all my avenues right now. But yeah, maybe one day I'll have a book and a blog and a website and a podcast, but that'll be later.
I'm not touching that dial.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for your time today.
Oh gosh.
All the time that you've invested in this process with our practice to really get us acclimated and up and running, and for creating something that really does have this potential, and it sounds like it already is impacting the therapeutic process in such a good way, such a positive way. So thank you for all of that.
Julia, thank you for your time. It's an honor.
If you like what you're hearing, please rate and review. This will help others find us and benefit as well. The Compassionate Climb podcast represents the opinions of Julia Napini and her guests. The information provided is intended for educational purposes only and should not be taken as legal advice. If that is what you are seeking, please consult an attorney.